Hey guys, just wrapped up the second event on Lake Okeechobee, and man, it was one of them weeks I'll never forget. And I just want to start off by thanking you guys for all the support. It really meant a lot. And I want to go over some of the baits and also some of the gear that I used that allowed me to be so successful. So stay tuned. The first technique I used was something that's really popular. There's been more tournaments, probably one in the state of Florida, on this technique alone. And it was just swimming a jig. But as you can see, I have a white and chartreuse jig on there. Basically, the last day of practice, I was able to locate a shad spawn. And I was able to really capitalize in the morning hours. Whenever you can find a shad spawn, I don't care where you're at throughout the country, you're able to catch a better than average fish, and you're able to catch them really fast. So I was pretty excited when I found that the last day of practice. But I just want to show you again real quick on this jig and why I like to throw this one in particular. You can see it has a really flat head. The head design is really flat, and what that allows you to do is it allows you to keep it up real high in the water column. Another cool thing about this here is it has that weed guard on there. The weed guard, and then also the hook, the bait keeper. It's a little, I mean, it's a real small little prong there, but it really does its justice whenever you're trying to thread on a soft plastic, and allows it to keep it on there really well. And here I'm basically teaming this up with 50-pound professional grade Berkeley braided line, and then I have it on a 7.3 medium heavy Villain 2.0. You don't want to use a really stiff rod. I mean, I've been down in Florida, and I've had some tournaments where I've used too stiff of a rod and it actually overpowered the fish. A lot of times you need to use a little bit lighter of a rod to be able to get those fish out of that vegetation, or sometimes you might have to go in there for those fish. But another key thing here is to use a fast gear ratio reel. This here is a Revo ALX. It's an 8-to-1 gear ratio reel. It allows me to keep that bait up real high. You're going to see here shortly how I work this presentation. The second technique was something I actually threw the majority of the tournament. I was able to cover a lot of water doing it, and I was able to do it productively because I was also keeping my eyes open, which you'll see here in the next technique, the reason why. But pretty much I'm just going to go through it. This here is a saltwater super spook. This is in bone white. You can see it's been chewed a little bit. It's been thrown quite often. Threw it a lot in the tournament. But one of the keys, and there's a couple important factors in the ways I set this up, but one of the most important things probably was to throw these fusion hooks on there. You know, they come with saltwater trebles on it. But this here is a 1X size number 1. It's an oversized treble. They're really sharp. These fish, a lot of them weren't committing to it. You know, a lot of them were spawning, some of them were post spawn. So whenever you have fish in those stages, a lot of times they're trying to either, you know, get this bait away from the bed or just maybe just kill it. So like a lot of the fish I was catching were actually hooked outside the head or on the bottom of the chin, something like that. So having a real strong treble hook was definitely important. And I rigged this up a little different than most guys. You know, I throw a loop knot, so this is a fluorocarbon leader. It's only about 12 inches or so. I tie an Alberto knot, and that's the 50-pound professional grade braided line. And this is just how I've always done it. You know, it's an awesome way to throw it. But the fluorocarbon allows you to, whenever you get it fouled up on the treble hook, a lot of times you can continue to work that bait and it'll come free. To whereas if you threw it with straight braided line, once it wraps once, a lot of times it'll wrap again and again and again. It just creates a nightmare. But the setup for this is a 6'10 medium heavy Fantasista Premier. You want a rod that's going to be a little bit shorter because you're constantly working that bait down, but then again you want something that has some backbone to it. So that's why I throw a medium heavy, making really long casts. And I mean, this reel right here really helps me to make them long casts. I'm throwing on a fast gear ratio reel. This is a Revo ALX 8-to-1. You can really launch these baits. It has amazing bearings and holds quite a bit of line. And that was pretty much my setup. And stay tuned, because you're going to see in this next technique why I kept my eyes open while I was throwing this bait. So this right here was the technique that really put the big ones in the boat. You know, I was covering a lot of water throwing a spook, and I was able to keep my eyes open. You know, we had a lot of cloudy conditions out there on Okeechobee, and it wasn't the best sight fishing days that we had, but I was able to catch a couple really big fish sight fishing. I'm just going to go over the 2 techniques. And the first one here, I mean, it's tried and true. There's been more fish and more money won on a jig. And this here is a 1/2 ounce all-terrain. This is a green pumpkin jig. I have that paired up with a chigger crawl, and that's actually the 3-inch. And this color variation, the green pumpkin blue, is one of my staples. You know, everybody's got their confidence. This is definitely one of my confidence colors. But again, I mean, you're going to see throughout all the techniques I used this past week, I was using 50-pound professional grade braided line. And the reason is, when you're down there in Florida, you don't want to be messing around with light line. You want to be using heavy line and line that you can depend on. And this professional grade is by far the best braided line that I've used. The setup for this is a 7.3 heavy action Fantasisa Premier. Again, on a fast gear ratio reel. This is an 8-to-1. And what that allows you to do is really winch those fish in. A lot of times, you know, you're looking at those bed fish and you're trying to figure out where that sweet spot is. And once you get them fired up, you want to try and get it in there as fast as you can, get it in and out. And so this is the one technique. I was able to catch the really big fish on the jig, but when they weren't biting the jig, I had to put that down and I had to pick up a Texas rig. And again, I rigged this up a little different than most. I'm going to get ahead and go and show you. This here is a Berkeley Havoc pit boss. It's in black and blue. I mean, every fish was different. I had to really change the colors on. I was throwing green pumpkin, black and blue. I threw a few other colors. But the cool way how I was rigging it is I was using a 4/0 Superline fusion hook. And I mean, I can't say enough on how much I like these fusion hooks. I mean, they're ultra sharp and they're strong. I actually bend the hook out a little bit. And just a hair, just kind of nudge it out with some pliers. But how I rig this up, it's a little different. You know, I have a tungsten weight on here, but in between that, you're going to see it's not a glass bead, but it's a rattling bead. And what that allows you to do is when you're down there and you're shaking that bait and it's on the bed, it sounds like a bluegill popping eggs off of it. And it's definitely one of the keys to being able to get a few extra bites. And here, I'll shake it for you so you can hear it. It's definitely one of the keys. But again, 50-pound professional grade braid, a little bit lighter of a rod because I tend to, whenever I'm Texas rig fishing, I use a little bit lighter of a rod. This is a 7.3 medium heavy, again the Fantasisa Premier, and fast gear ratio reel again. So I mean, pretty simple. But I'm going to get ahead now and I'm going to go over some of the key components, the key gear I was using to allow me to be able to see those fish whenever they're out there on Lake Okeechobee. When it comes down to sight fishing and fishing sight fishing events, there's 3 things that I really try to utilize. And the first thing here is sunglasses. You can see I have 2 different sunglasses. They're both Costas, been wearing them for a while, but they're 2 different lenses. I wear a Sunrise for low light. It really brightens things up. And then I wear a copper once that sun starts getting higher for those real sunny days. Another thing here, you can see I have a push pole. Push pole is really important whenever you're fishing shallow because you're trying to stay stealth. And whenever you're trying to stay stealth, I mean, it allows you to be able to approach those beds and being unheard, and that's really important when it comes down to fishing. But the other thing is here, I mean, I hardly want to put it on because I wore it so much this week. I mean, it stinks. But this here is a New Thread sun shirt, and I want to show you why this is important. There's not many sun shirts out there that actually have a hood on them, and what the hood does is it actually cuts off the glare. So whenever I'm up on the bow, I mean, you guys can probably see with some of the pictures is I stand up real high, and the reason why you stand up high is because you can see down a little bit better. But whenever you put this hood up, it really cuts off the glare. And there's not many companies that make a hooded sun shirt, so definitely check out New Threads. And I'm telling you, it's really important when it comes down to sight fishing.